Coast. Everything about what the Husky was doing looked like one thing. It was something else entirely. Coast. The moment she could not explain came on a Sunday afternoon. Rosalind had reached for her daughter to pick her up from the sofa, a thing she had done thousands of times, and the Husky had stepped into the space between her arms and the child. Not growling, not showing teeth, just there a physical interruption. Coast. She stepped back. Juno stepped back. Rosalind reached for Kaya again. Juno stepped forward again. Rosalind was 39, a licensed speech-language pathologist, 15 years in pediatric rehabilitation. She worked daily with children who had neurological and developmental differences in their caregivers. Coast. She had, across her career, read more literature on behavioral indicators in young children than most pediatricians ever would. She trusted her professional instincts. They had served her well. She did not have a professional instinct for what Juno was doing, and that unsettled her more than the behavior itself. Coast. Juno was a 2-year-old Siberian Husky, 55 pounds, silver and white, with one ice blue eye and one that was half blue and half brown. She had been a high-energy puppy who had settled with consistent training into an attentive and reliable adult dog. Coast. She was not possessive by history. She had never resource guarded anything, including Kaya, who was now 28 months old and had been Juno's close companion since the dog arrived at 8 weeks. The Sunday incident was not the first. It was the fourth. Coast. The first time had been 11 days prior. Kaya had been on the living room floor a normal afternoon, and she had made a small sound, not distress, not pain, a brief involuntary sound Rosalind had registered and filed as nothing. Coast. And Juno had come from the other room at a pace that was faster than a walk, and stood beside Kaya and faced Rosalind when Rosalind turned toward the child. Coast. The second and third incidents were similar. Kaya, an ordinary moment, and Juno placing herself between child and parent. Not aggressively, not playfully, with a focused seriousness that Rosalind could not translate into any behavioral framework she trusted. Coast. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Coast. She called her sister after the Sunday incident, who kept 2 dogs, and her sister said, "That's textbook protective resource guarding. I've seen it before." She called her veterinarian's nurse line and received the same general assessment. Coast. She was already on the wait list for a behavioral consult when, 9 days later, Kaya had a seizure. Coast. She was on the kitchen floor mid-play when her body went rigid in a way that Rosalind recognized in the first half second, before she registered anything else at a conscious level. Her training did not override her terror. It worked alongside it. She was on her knees beside Kaya before the thought completed. Coast. She called 911 with the phone on speaker face down on the floor, hands on her daughter. Juno was at Kaya's other side before the dispatcher answered. She lay down, flat and still, body pressed against the toddler's back, not moving. Coast. Kaya was transported. Juno stayed at the front window and watched the ambulance leave, and did not leave that spot for 45 minutes until Rosalind's mother arrived to sit with her. Coast. Has your dog ever done something around your child that looked wrong until a medical professional explained what was actually happening? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Coast. Dr. Claire Adeyemi, pediatric neurology, assessed Kaya over 2 days and reviewed the history Rosalind provided in detail. Coast. The initial seizure was followed by 2 absence episodes in the hospital. Brief, caught on EEG, periods where Kaya's consciousness simply stepped out for 3 to 8 seconds. Small and invisible, easily read as distraction or tiredness in an ordinary toddler. Coast. Dr. Adeyemi explained that the absence episodes had almost certainly been occurring for weeks before the tonic-clonic event. Coast. They were, she said, associated with a microchemical change in the body that was consistent and detectable. The autonomic nervous system produces a specific hormonal and volatile compound profile in a 30 to 60 seconds before the onset of an absence event, as the cortical disruption begins. Coast. Juno had been detecting that profile every time the small sound Kaya made 11 days before the first incident that Rosalind had registered and filed as nothing. The sound of a brief absence event. Coast. Juno had been in the other room and had come at pace and positioned herself between the child and the parent, because the signal she read said, "Something is about to happen to this person that the other person needs to know about." Coast. The 4 intervention attempts, including the Sunday incident. Each one timed, Rosalind understood now, to a precursor event she could not perceive. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never ask for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Coast. Kaya is on medication. Her seizure activity is managed. She wears an alert bracelet, and she will see Dr. Adeyemi every 4 months for the foreseeable future. Coast. Juno sleeps in Kaya's room now. This was not a decision Rosalind made consciously. The dog simply moved there the second night Kaya was home from the hospital, and it was clear that this was where Juno had decided to be. Coast. Rosalind gave the behavioral consult appointment to a friend who needed it. She and Juno had an understanding now that did not require a trained third party. Coast. The next story is about a dog who sat at a specific window every evening for 3 weeks, and what the family found when they finally went to look at what was on the other side. Coast. Some nights, Rosalind lies awake and reconstructs the timeline. 11 days of a dog trying to show her a pattern she could not read. 4 times she had moved the dog out of the way, reached for her child, and been confident she was managing an animal behavior problem. The seizure happened 9 days after the last intervention. Coast. She is not good at sitting with that. She has decided to be useful about it instead.